Hi, my name's Erick Hailstone. I've been working with Yamaha for over a decade, teaching at worship events. Today, we're going to show the first in a series of audio production systems. This one is based around this small guitar amplifier called the THR-10, and this keyboard. This is the MX49. The first time I saw this was at a worship event a few years ago. I took it home meaning a hotel room, so I could get to know it a little bit better so I could show it off the next day. On my bed, I had this THR guitar amplifier, this MX49 keyboard, a laptop, and a guitar. And I realized I had a full-on recording production system. This does great emulation of guitar amplifiers, and when you play audio back through it from a computer or from the aux in, it's full range, just like a boombox. It's amazing. This keyboard has sounds that are based on the Yamaha motif, which has been used in more recordings and more concerts than any other keyboard in the world. It's world class. And here's my favorite thing about it. It's insanely lightweight. So we'll show you each one of these individually, show you the specific features and how they work together. All right, so let's take a look at this system. As I mentioned, the heart of it is this amplifier, the THR-10. And I gotta tell you, I've got 9 amps in this house, and I use this more often than anything else. If I'm sitting around practicing really boring things like scales in front of the TV, it's right there next to me, and it sounds great. And it sounds great at a really low volume. It also plays full range audio, which makes it a great piece at the heart of the system. I can take this, the MX49, take the outputs from it, plug directly into the aux input, and now anything I play on this is full range audio. Not like a guitar amp, like a boombox, because it is a boombox. I've got a computer here. I can be recording the entire time, audio and MIDI. This has a USB interface that will connect here. It sends 16 channels of MIDI, and it also sends audio. Any full range audio I play from here connected to the THR-10 plays back full range audio through USB. So let's take a look at the features and the sounds. The first thing, there's a button to the far left. If I hold that down, I get a tuner, so I can tune the guitar with it. If I tap on it, it'll do tap tempo for delays, things like that. Above this, we have user memory. There's 5 of them. So the first sound I have is what I think of as more of a jazz guitar kind of sound. So at preset number 2, I have the clean sound that I would use maybe with a tiny bit of crunch. If I push it a little bit, you can hear a tiny bit of breakup there. My third setting here, I've got a crunchy, I would call it a Brit kind of sound. And one of the great things about these is they act like real amplifiers. So when I back off the volume, you can hear it clean up. So right under the user memory, we have a knob marked amp. And going from left to right or clockwise, the first setting we have is clean. And that will be like an American clean amplifier that we've all been used to playing for decades now. The next one up is crunch. So imagine that amp being pushed to the point where it would distort a bit. And then finally we come up to a lead sound. Lead sound would be adding a distortion pedal to a Brit amplifier. We come up to Brit high gain. That's going to be kind of the 4x12 push distorted sound. Modern, probably more like a California metal kind of amplifier sound. We keep going clockwise. We have a setting for bass. Yes, you can plug a bass guitar into this and have a real satisfactory sound. The next one is acoustic. So if you have a nice Yamaha nylon string or steel string guitar, you can plug it in here and get it louder. And then finally, there's one that's marked flat. The next set of knobs we have are gain and master. As we go across, we have bass, middle, and treble. Standard kind of tone controls that you'd see on any guitar amplifier nowadays. Now we hit the effects section. So you have chorus, flanger, phaser, and tremolo. Next we have reverb and delay. You have a delay program. You have a combination delay and reverb, so you don't have to give one up or the other. You can have them both. You have a spring reverb and a hall reverb. Finally, we have output controls for the guitar and for whatever's connected to USB or the aux input. Here you have the input for the guitar, and then you have phones input. Anything you have coming in through the aux or through the USB will be full range in your headphones, but the guitar sounds will still be based on the models that you have picked. Check this out. This is a guitar Yamaha made a few years ago, and it's a super thin body nylon string guitar. By itself, it's pretty quiet, but check it out through the THR. It's a great combination. And the other day I had the two of these out in my backyard running this off batteries. I mean, how cool is that? So let's look at the back of the THR. It's pretty simple. You've got an input here for the USB jack. So that allows this to send audio back and forth between itself and a computer. You'd also use this for doing firmware updates as well. And you've got a jack for power here. One other thing, this pops off and you can put the batteries in here. This is the Yamaha MX-49, and I'm going to show you my favorite feature about it. It's incredibly lightweight. So I'm primarily a guitar player. When I play keyboards, I'm usually doing stuff like this. And if you're playing a synthesizer in church, that's probably what you're doing 90% of the time. You're playing pads, you're playing root and fifths, and occasionally another sound. This has tons of sounds, a thousand sounds from the Yamaha motif. The probably most popular keyboard in the world. It's probably been used in more concerts and more recordings than anything. You've got 128 voice polyphony. So if you're playing the 88 note version of this like a piano, you're never going to run out of notes. We're going to take a look at this from left to right, showing you the different features. So first up is you have your volume control. Below that, pitch bend wheel, modulation wheel. Mod wheel, typically we'd use it for tremolo, vibrato, sometimes for filter sweeps, things like that. Next, we have 4 knobs, and they can each have 3 different functions. There's a knob function button to the right. Right now, the way they're set up, this first knob is controlling the cutoff of the filter. In essence, a tone control. It's making it brighter or darker. There's a resonance control that changes kind of the center of the frequencies. There are chorus and reverb controls as well, so you can make this super wet and super chorusy. If you press this button, you go to the second selection of knob controls. You have attack, decay, sustain, and release. And the nice thing about that, as I mentioned, particularly in worship, often you're holding out roots and fifths for a long time. Well, just grab the release control and set it for infinite, and away you go. You might also want to change the attack so it takes a while for this to start up, so it ramps into itself. The decay and sustain allow you to get more specific versions of that kind of change. You go down one more element, you've got pan control for left and right, you have volume control. You can have two sounds selected at one time with this keyboard. So whichever one of those that you have selected, you can use this knob to turn that volume up or down so you get the right blend. So the next control is the Daw Remote, which allows you to control whatever software you're running on the computer. And we've got presets for Cubase, Logic, Sonar, all of the popular DAWs that are currently out there. To the right of that, you've got transport control, stop and play. That will allow you to start and stop your recording on the computer. Above that, you have transpose. So, yeah, I mentioned I'm a guitar player. I'm really good at playing in the key of C. But if my singer says C sharp or E flat, it's going to be really helpful for me to just go ahead and switch this way. It's like putting a capo on the guitar. Right under that, you have octave controls. So I'm going up 3 octaves or going down. So with the 49-note keyboard in particular, being able to go up or down that many octaves is really helpful. The next set of controls are basically the utility controls for the unit itself. File, this is where you would save things, call up sounds that you might have saved previously. You can go in and do editing from here. There's a utility and a job control. Utility takes you to a general section. If you select that, it'll go in, it'll show you the master volume controls, basically reflects everything that's going on up here. There's a button marked store. This is how you save a sound. So if you make a change here, hit that, boom, away you go. Next, we have 2 displays, numeric display and then a larger display giving you more information. This is where you would select a sound or a performance. So it automatically is set up so that you've got 2 sounds in the display. You cursor up or down to change those sounds. As we go to the right of the display, you have a data wheel. This is how you make quick and big changes. If you want to make slower changes, you have 2 buttons that take you up one at a time. So you get over to the far right, you have controls for layering sounds. So right now I have an electric piano. If I come down below, I'm going to select a pad sound. If I press layer, I have the electric piano and that pad together. Again, with the cursor controls, I can go down and change any one of those. If I cursor up, I can change the top sound. Next, I have a split sound, so that will select one sound to the right, one sound to the left. So I have got acoustic piano in my right hand. I've got the pad sound down below. Here's a great feature with this. If you press and hold down split and then just hit a key, that now sets the split point. So now the left is all going to be below this G note, everything else to the right. So next we have the arpeggiator. Every single sound can have a phrase that will play continuously, just like this. And you can go in and select any of them, and there's many, many of them. You can save that as part of the preset, so once you call it up, it's there all the time. Next to that, we have rhythm patterns. Every one of these performances can have a preset drum sound. Next, we have external song. You've got a USB stick here. You can save MIDI files on here or audio recordings in WAV format. So right now I have a pad, a synth pad in fifths that I did earlier. So I mentioned in a worship service, this is a typical kind of thing that you might have. The next button is a tempo button, and this allows you to set tempo for sequences that could be playing, for the rhythm tracks that are built in. Anything that has to do with tempo, you can set that control right here. The buttons below this are for selecting sounds. You've got 16 different buttons and they're categorized. I'm in the piano section. This will be nothing but acoustic pianos. And you can hear I'm going through several. So there are many, many different acoustic piano sounds for different types of. Keyboard's a little broader. It has electric piano sounds. When you see DX, these are sounds made famous by the Yamaha DX7. Clavinet sounds. Organ. Guitar. A nylon string guitar. Bass sounds. These are acoustic bass sounds. Our next section is strings. We start off with solo strings, cello, and then you're going to hit sections. Starting small and getting bigger. Brass, same type of set. You start off with single sounds. Again, my favorite feature of this keyboard with all the stuff it's got going on. It's the fact that I can put that in a bag over one shoulder, have my guitar over the other shoulder, have either an amp and my guitar effects or the THR and my computer, and we're good to go. Let's take a look at the back of the MX49. So from my left to the right, the first thing you have is a phone jack, so I can plug in my headphones, listen privately, quietly. You have left and right outputs. These will go to whatever amplifier or whatever PA you're using in a live performance. You have an auxiliary input. This is an 1/8 inch stereo input. And what's cool about that is you can take a MP3 player and you can play full range audio into this out to whatever amplification system you've got. So again, if you want to use backing tracks or record pads, that kind of stuff, same sort of thing we did with the USB stick, you can do it from here. Next, you have a foot controller. that would be something that looked like a volume control, but you can use that to control any of the parameters on board here, including volume. Sustain pedal, fairly obvious, but what you would use for like an acoustic piano sustain pedal. Coming across, we had the USB input. This particular one is a host input. This is the USB interface to the computer, also the MIDI interface to the computer. Allows you to send 16 tracks of MIDI back and forth or record 2 channels of audio. You have a USB stick input. This allows you to bring updates in for firmware updates, software updates, and also allows you to play back MIDI sequences or WAV files that you stored here. You have 2 standard 5-pin DIN connectors, MIDI in and MIDI out. You can use this with more traditional, older pieces of gear, or when you don't want to be sending audio. Sometimes you just want MIDI. This is a simple way of doing that. You have an on-off control, and then finally you have the input for the power adapter. That's the MX49. So one of the most overlooked functions of the THR amplifier is this piece of software. It's called THR Edit. And one of the great things about it is everything that you see on the top panel, so when you run across and you see bass, middle, treble, gain, master, the selection of the amplifiers, all that stuff, it's reflected here and there. If you change it here, it will change here. If I change the bass setting here, it'll change on the amplifier as well. You'll sonically hear that. Now here's something that you get to that you can't otherwise. Cabinet. So I can go in and select an American 4x12, American 2x12, British 4x12, 1x12, and have that sound represented. Here are the various effects. And when you look on the top of the THR, they've given you 2 knobs to do all these functions. It's really quick and dirty, but here you can get into things much deeper. So here you have a compressor. When I turn that on, right now I have a simple compressor with sustain and output. If I select this and hit the rack compressor, notice that all these controls pop up. This is more of a studio compressor. When I come down here, under effect, these are the modulation effects, so flanger, chorus, tremolo, etc. Right now I have a chorus selected. There are 3 knobs, speed, depth, and mix. Watch what happens when I select the flanger. First I have to turn it on. So now I have 5 different controls. Delays. As opposed to 1 single knob, now I can control the time, the feedback. You've got high cut and low cut controls as well. You go under the reverb control. Now I have hall, room, plate, spring, and again, depending on the reverb that I select, I'll have a very simple amount of controls or all kinds. Finally, we have a noise gate that we can turn on, and that can be saved as part of the patch. You can't get to that from the amplifier itself, but you can from here. Lastly, but not leastly, you've got 5 memories on board on the THR amplifier. Here, you can have 100 saved. So you can have an entire library of really finely tweaked sounds saved. So you take this, the MX49, the THR10, and you've got a portable studio.